This podcast is rated S for spoilers. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome to the Half Past Podcast. This is episode 90, the movie review of Frozen 2. I'm Graham Ricks, and here with me is my friend and co-pilot, Ian Jones.
It's appropriate because it's freezing here.
It's so cold up there. You moved such a long time ago. This hasn't been your first winter, though, right?
No, it hasn't, but it doesn't matter. I am envious of your 80-degree days or whatever you got going on there.
Oh man, it's been actually closer to like 60 and 70 all the time.
Well, at some point in the next April, we will get the sun back.
Yes.
You know, April-ish. I'll see the sun again.
Yeah. Oh, wait a minute. There's a special guest here.
Oh, wait a minute. I think you and your special guest have a little story to tell me.
I have Jackie here.
Hi.
Hey, Jackie.
So it's a three-way.
Thanks for remembering me.
You gotta keep up both windows on here.
Yeah, right? I have to keep... The thing is when you're in Skype, it goes back and forth depending on who's talking. So it Jackie will pop in every second or so.
Jackie,
she says.
I didn't forget about you, dear.
Thank you, Ian. Maybe you should be hosting this podcast.
Graham's
Just
a little under the weather.
I am a little under the weather, so I've been sick for the past few days, man. And I've been I got this sinus things. I got this sinus headache and sinus pressure. So I sound more nasally than normal. But it has been an interesting time period, and you're talking about the news that you just brought up, and that's because Jackie and I are now engaged.
Ooh.
Oh, surprise.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Oh, thanks, man.
So, do we have time for a little bit of a story? How did this happen? Because I don't know.
Well,
and I was like, well, you better tell me on the podcast.
Well, nobody really knew about it except me. I kept it to myself this whole time, so I got a ring from my mother, back in March when she was out here. And so I got the ring from her, and throughout this whole year I've been trying to I wanted to put it in a new setting, but I've had so many problems this year. I had surgery and all this other stuff, so I didn't get a chance to actually get a new setting for the ring, but I figured it would be just as special to give her my mother's ring. And
yes.
So we went to Sedona up north, and we took a trip out there and for Thanksgiving, and I proposed on December 1st. It was sunrise and everything. It was outside our hotel room where there's a terrace, and the view is just gorgeous. You can see the red rocks and everything. And so I proposed then at sunrise on the 1st.
I'm grinning like an idiot. I love it.
It was great.
That's the place to go. That is the place to go. Propose,
right?
Let me tell you.
Now I know. My coworker went out there too to propose. So a lot of people proposed out in Sedona.
Annie and I. Yeah,
yep.
that's the best place to do it. There is an energy. There is a feeling there, isn't there? Now it's special. You guys will always have that.
Yeah. There
is a different energy in Sedona. It's tough to put a finger on exactly.
Yeah, it's once you go out there, it's it feels so much more comfortable and more relaxed, and it's good. It's really good. And we've gone out to Sedona pretty much since we've been dating. We've got out there at least once a year, so it's been a fun time for sure. It's kind of funny because Jackie and my coworkers have been giving me crap about marrying her like for a while, like for the past like 2 or 3 weeks, specifically.
Really?
Yeah. And so like
uh-huh.
we had did this like thing where Jackie had made some cupcakes. What type of cupcakes were they?
They were just pumpkin.
Pumpkin spice.
With like cream cheese frosting. So good.
Oh yeah, homemade cream cheese frosting, delicious. So I had like brought those in, and I was just giving it out to my coworkers, and they were just like, "Well, why haven't you married her yet?" When they're like eating these delicious cupcakes that are just like perfectly moist with homemade cream cheese frosting. And then like the night before, we had went to a train ride. We did a train ride at the Verde Canyon Railroad or something. Yeah, something like that.
It was a train.
Yeah, it was a train, and you go through the Verde River. And she had given me so much crap because she was just like, we were outside because it has like an outdoor car where you can sit outside and like look at all the rocks and everything while you're out there.
And it was so nice, and we're like cuddling on the bench to keep warm, and I'm like, This would be a really great place to propose, wouldn't it?
Well, I'll tell you something. When your mind is made up and you've got the ring, it's like having an atomic bomb in your pocket or wherever you're keeping it. And people always talk about it, and it's like, shut up, you're gonna like you're ruining my plan. That's the thing. Like even with Annie, it's like, stop talking. Everyone needs to stop talking about it. You're going to ruin the plan.
Well, I did.
That's exactly.
I did almost do it. Well, because he wanted to be back to the hotel for sunset. And I was like, no, let's go get dinner in Jerome. It'll be delicious. And he's like, I probably would have proposed at sunset, but... So, and then I almost didn't wake up in time for sunrise. I tried really hard to ruin this proposal.
It was a good time, man. And you're totally right, man. I swear everyone was talking about it, like, ever since I had the ring. It, like, kept coming up more often than usual. And I'm just like, well, what the hell? Like, I'm weird. I'm working my way to it. Like, I don't understand.
It's so weird. As soon as you have made up your mind and you've bought the damn thing or whatever, you have it, people start asking you about it, and it's just like it's just like that's the worst little time period right there. But that's awesome. I'm so happy for you guys.
Oh, I'm very happy too, man. And the family's happy, her family's happy, my family's happy, everyone's happy. It's great. It's really good. So I guess we're probably gonna have to eventually talk about Frozen here. So let's take a break, and I guess this works anyway because Kristoff does propose to Anna in this movie. So
there we go. Nice segue.
So let's just take a quick break, and then we'll actually get into Frozen 2. Kristoff, Olaf, and Sven leave Arendelle to travel to an ancient autumn-bound forest of an enchanted land. They set out to find the origin of Elsa's powers in order to save their kingdom. Alright, I got the read done. This movie is directed by Chris Buck and Jennifer Lee. Chris Buck is the one who he co-directed Tarzan back in the 90s. God, what was that, 96 probably? 97? I don't know, 96 back then. And Jennifer Lee was the one who did the previous Frozen movie. This movie starring, of course, Kristen Bell as Anna. Is it Anna or Anna?
Anna.
It's Anna, right? Okay,
yeah.
That's what I thought. She is probably most known for Veronica Mars in The Good Place, but she has been on stage and has done so many voice roles in her career, just like tons of voice roles. Idina Menzel is Elsa, who is probably also another stage person who's probably one of the more famous stage people from Broadway. And she was in Rent, and she also did Wicked. Josh Gad, the The guy from
your favorite actor.
The guy that's just the worst. Like, I just can't stand
sucks.
Josh Gad.
He's so bad.
Yeah, I am shocked that he still has a career. I'm just like, this whole time, I'm just like, God dang it.
He's
and
liked
I
by
would
the
have
right
to
people,
say,
I guess.
he is. He's liked by the right people, and I think he's absolutely awful. Now, we have Josh Gad as Olaf. Now, the thing about Josh Gad as Olaf is it's one of the only times that I can tolerate him is as a snowman. That's it. Everything else, I cannot stand him whatsoever. But he was in the Book of Mormon, Beauty and the Beast, and of course Pixels, which we also reviewed a long time ago. That was like, I feel like a couple of years ago by now. Maybe even 3 years ago. But Josh Gad, he was also on 1600 Penn, which is the first time I saw him, which might be the reason why I can't stand him, because he's awful and completely unlikable in that show. He's just like the worst character, and that show got canceled immediately. I think it had like 6 episodes, and that was it. It was the worst. Jonathan Groff is Kristoff. He's another stage and a Broadway guy. He was in Spring Awakening, he's in Hamilton, and now currently he's in the Mindhunter TV series from Netflix, which he's not singing in, which is weird. But Sterling K. Brown as Matthias. Sterling K. Brown, I feel like we haven't done a lot of movies with him in it, but he has been showing up in a lot of things lately. He's starting to like really, because he's also going to be in that, oh man, what's the name of that movie with Blake Lively?
Sterling K. Brown.
The Rhythm Section.
Rhythm Section, yes. Rhythm Section, he's supposed to be in that one too, but he was also in American Crime Story. He was one of the main characters in This Is Us also, but he's been showing up everywhere. I think him as an actor is really blowing up.
You know, one of the first, he was in one of the very early seasons of Supernatural, and he played one of the hunters.
Yes.
Who turns on the brothers. And
yes.
So it's cool to see how his career is blown up, because he had a recurring role, and then he was in like Black Panther and
Yep, he was in Black Panther also. Yep. His career has been getting really huge. It's fun. Like, we've seen this multiple times in this podcast where we've been doing this long enough to where we kind of see these actors start real small, and then now it's like their career has just like gotten so much bigger, and he's definitely one of those guys where he's starting to really blow up right now. He's probably pretty close to his peak career at this point in time, because he's had a lot of success in the past like couple of years, and it looks like it's going to continue. The last one I'm even going to bother with is Evan Rachel Wood as Idina. She was in Running with Scissors and the Ides of March. So, let's go ahead and get right into the quirks and likes section, huh?
All right.
Is everyone excited?
Yes, I've been wanting to talk about this for weeks.
Frozen.
Yep.
All right, let's do it.
Jackie's been
You're a
wanting
hater,
to talk about
Ian.
this.
Hater.
I'll balance you out.
Hater.
So, Jackie has been wanting to talk about this for weeks, and because Jackie and I saw it when it first came out, we saw it opening day, and we haven't talked about it at all, because that's the rule of the podcast. If you're going to be on the podcast, you can't talk to me about it. I have to be surprised about everything.
And people have kept asking me about it. My sister, my mom, everyone keeps bringing it up, and I'm like, can't talk about it. Graham's here. Maybe later.
Well, so who wants to go first?
I think we should do the quirks and get Jackie to go first. Let's have Jackie go first.
All right.
Okay, so I don't have a lot of quirks.
Okay.
Expectedly.
That works, because I'm sure Ian's got some.
I know, and I'm excited to call him a hater. But one of the things that so we actually went and saw it a second time.
Yes.
A couple days ago, because I couldn't think of anything that I didn't like. So I was like, I have to see it again, because I'm sure there are things that were not as great. And after they fight like the lizard spirit, the fire spirit, the lizard, like she like goes and corners this cute little lizard, and he like jumps up into her hand, and she has like this really like weird exchange with this fire spirit, and she's just like, they're all looking at us, what do I do? And I'm just like, like you never like yes, there are often times in movies where there's like a crowd watching a main actor do a thing, but you don't ever address it. And I thought it was like really weirdly written dialogue.
It is a weird dialogue, and the thing is you think that because even after that, she was just like, well, what should we do? And then he goes over to the rock, and she's like, okay, continue north. So you almost feel like she's gained the whole Disney princess animal character that she's gonna like be with, but that doesn't happen at all. Like you don't see you see the character around, but it's not like they're really communicating with each other or anything whatsoever. It's like a weird, so it's weird for them to have this dialogue there and then not even really benefit off of it whatsoever. It's just kind of in there, and that's it.
Yeah, she just learns that she has to go north, which I feel like she knew anyway, and even if she hadn't known, I'm sure the voice would have popped up and been like, I'm over here. And they would have, like, gone that way.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, she was following the voice the whole time, so she didn't need any extra. Like,
yeah. And so I just thought that was, and I just hated the dialogue. I was like, oh my gosh, this is really uncomfortable. Watching it the second time, I was like, cut this out.
Yeah.
Redo this. And then my other, I have a couple more quirks. My other thing is that I didn't think that the new characters added much to the story. And I felt like, so I know that the first Frozen movie got a lot of crap for not having any people of color in their film at all. Like it just got trashed for it. And I felt like all the new characters were just Disney's way of being like, okay, well, here's some people of color. We're not actually going to give them, like, a job to do or like, storylines, and they barely have names. They have, like, 3 lines each, maybe. But here you go. Be satisfied that we heard your critiques.
That is such a good point. And not only that, because this was something that I was thinking about touching on, but since you mentioned it, then they go back and say, well, wait a minute, Elsa and Anna are technically half whatever those people are anyway, but they show no other than sort of looking like those characters that they introduced. They show no physical signs of being mixed race,
and even their mom is,
and neither does their mom.
She looks like she belongs in Arendelle. Like there's
so I mean, it's
kind of problematic.
That is one of those things, though, where it's like, these could be, they very well could have been, like our Native American population. Yeah. But then,
which is the idea you get to it is that they're like a native population.
Well, and the people, they're based on a real native indigenous tribe. They're based off of these Sami peoples who are native to that area. So even to me, that's even more problematic. It's just like, oh, you're based on like a real native tribe, but you have these like, I've never seen a whiter character in a movie than Elsa. So it just feels really shoehorned in.
Yeah, I think I definitely think that they kind of like tossed it in there just to try to help it out a little bit, and it definitely feels that way. And this is one of those issues when you have a movie that is originally wasn't supposed to have a sequel, and then they kind of had to like ride into a sequel. And considering they did a pretty good job. Yeah, they retconned it to like squeeze it in. So even though these characters don't have these features, I mean, it's because they've already been created and this wasn't supposed to be there. So it's just one of those things where they kind of tossed it in and they had to write it in and kind of figure it out. So you're gonna come across things like this when that happens.
Definitely. And I totally am for it. Representation matters, and I think that diversity in movies is very important. I just feel like when you're going back and changing a story to include it for the sake of including it, you get problematic situations like, oh, all of a sudden our leads are half people or half brown and half, I don't know. It just felt really not inappropriate, but it definitely didn't feel like it belonged there.
Yeah, and really, those people in general, like you said, my biggest issue is they really didn't contribute much to the story at all. They're very much a plot device. They're there to kind of just help the story move along, but really their importance is non-existent. It's just is what it is. But.
Definitely. And which kind of goes into my final quirk. A lot of the story for Frozen 2, I feel like puts a lot of the actions from the first movie into question. Like, obviously, their mom and dad knew that there was this enchanted magical forest where the spirits roamed and interacted with people or whatever. But then they still act like they're very afraid of like of Elsa's magical powers, and they lock her away. And it, to me, it's just like, well, you knew like this was a thing. Why would you, instead of like, I don't know, going to the enchanted forest sooner, even though it's like you would, I don't know. I feel like they would have tried to do it differently, other than just like, oh, well, we're afraid of this locking you away forever. So I felt like that a lot of Frozen 1 doesn't make as much sense now that Frozen 2 is out.
Yes.
That's a very good point.
Yeah, do you have something else to say, Jones?
No, I think Jackie is right on the money there. This is what happens when you go back and you try to fix things or expand by going in the wrong direction. Instead of moving forward, they went to the past, and none of this was set up. It doesn't track. The fact that her mother would have known about the spirits and about this energy, and then not really known how to deal with her daughter doesn't make any sense to me.
No, it doesn't. It makes no sense. All right, any other quirks from Jackie?
No, those are my big ones. I mean, I feel like my quirks are pretty standard. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, this movie did something very special, and that was it made me appreciate Frozen 1, which I believe is vastly overrated anyway. But then when I look at the sequel, which I actually enjoyed watching, I actually enjoyed this movie. Let me preface everything I'm about to say, because I'm going to ruin Jackie's morning.
I enjoyed the movie.
I actually enjoyed Frozen 2.
No longer friends with Ian.
I enjoyed Frozen 2 more than Frozen 1, but Frozen 1 is a far superior movie. And here's why. Frozen 2 doesn't even have a villain. So there's no at no point is there any danger. By definition, it completely undermines everything that all the other Walt Disney movies, all the other animated classics. There was always this rule that was in place that scary things, dangerous things are going to happen, but in the end, it's going to be okay. And we don't have any of that in Frozen 2 because there's no bad guy, and really at no point is anyone in jeopardy.
In this instance, the bad guys are essentially the elements, and the antagonist is their grandfather, but it's their grandfather in the past that's the antagonist. So it's like a really weird.
But it's
way
not
to kind of put it together.
And like none of it is a shocking reveal. I mean, all of it is so convoluted just to reveal some really awful, just to reveal something awful about their family past.
Oh, and the way that it was revealed felt so convenient because she can just will water into memories or into figures.
Well, I mean, that was actually one of my likes is that they talk about that at the very beginning, and it's something that is incorporated into at the throughout the movie. So I liked some of that. But yeah, when you don't have another way of, when you don't have an actual character to play off of, like had there been a villain who knew all this stuff and maybe was causing crap to happen to Arendelle to where the girls would need to go on this adventure. Yeah. There's no need for anyone to go on the adventure other than Elsa is hearing this call. So I really felt like they screwed the pooch here because they don't really have, like, the danger isn't there. They kill.
The people in Arendelle were kicked out of their houses, though. They couldn't go home. They had to figure out what was going on so that the people in Arendelle could be safe. So there was definitely a reason that they went off on their adventure.
Well, okay,
it was
so
definitely kicked off by
on that little plot hole, what exactly was were Elsa and Anna thinking? Because effectively they were going to let the city be destroyed, but they weren't going to give their people any notice that it was going to happen. Like, who just up and even in the South here, when a hurricane comes, there are always people who stay the hell behind. They don't at any point get a message to anyone back home that, oh, hey, you know what? A giant tidal wave is going to wipe out the city. But then conveniently, it doesn't. Why?
But here's the deal. By that time period, nobody is in Arendelle.
That's ridiculous, Graham. That is absolutely ridiculous.
Are you telling you want them to go back to Arendelle?
In the context of the movie, Arendelle is evacuated and they are taken to the peaks. So nobody's there.
I understand that, but that is so ridiculous. That's such a ridiculous thing to me. Just for it to end up not mattering at all. That's the thing. Like, you know what? Let the city be destroyed, but that stops them from building an Arendelle park in Disneyland if they do that. So you can't do that. You can't do the thing that should happen. There should be a consequence for all of this, but it's not there. None of it is there. None of it matters because it should matter. But then she just stops the water anyway.
The problem is that I can't imagine Disney doing a movie where the descendants are severely punished for what someone previously has done.
There are no consequences in this movie, and I get it. It's a Disney movie, but I mean, when you really look at it, it's like, oh my goodness.
I love how it's like, my grandfather has done this, and everyone of Arendelle must suffer. This is your reaction to what should happen in this movie.
Oh, goodness.
Oh, my gosh. Okay.
All right. That's not even so. All right. Really, that's something that's one of the things that I don't even really care. The fact that the city was spared, I mean, great. Now Disney can add it on to one of their parks and charge an arm and a leg for people to go and see it. But I mean, there should have been some consequences, and there were none. Olaf got brought back to life. Everything was happily ever after. There's the threat of danger is just not, at the end of the day, it's just not there.
That's
the
fair.
Other thing is, I thought the music was just not this good this time around. And
I've heard a lot of people say that.
The thing is, the thing about that is, I don't think they could have done better with it. Like I think that's a tall order
Yeah,
So I
they
don't
couldn't
really
have done better.
I don't really blame them. It's like I don't really think they should have tried to top it, but it was just like it's one song after another, and they're not as good as the first go around. But the thing that really like had me laughing in my seat, which I couldn't stop laughing because it was so stupid. And Annie the entire time is really emotional and she's tearing up, and I can't stop laughing, and everyone's wondering what the hell I'm laughing at. Is there's this ridiculous solo that Christoph does, and it's so out of place for the movie. It's like this it's like this. It's like this. It's this Peter Cetera. He does like a Peter Cetera 80s love song in the middle of the
ballad.
movie. It's an 80s ballad.
An 80s
yes.
love ballad. Yes.
And I was like, is this
so
a Peter
funny.
Cetera song?
Scene,
what the hell is he doing?
That scene is hilarious. That scene is so
I could
funny.
not stop laughing because it was so cheesy. And it's like out of place for the movie.
It's supposed to be. It's
It's
supposed to be hilarious.
supposed to be cheesy. It's absolutely
I was
supposed
laughing
to be
for the
cheesy.
wrong reasons while everyone else is like tearing up or like.
What movie theater
Who
were
was
you
crying?
Who
during
that
that
scene?
Were you
That's
guys?
so weird.
Did you guys?
No,
actually
everyone
enjoy
was
the song?
laughing.
That song is
Everyone
supposed to be
was
hilarious. It's a comedy song.
I was
Yeah,
laughing
it's a comedy
because of how
song.
stupid it was. So I was
It's-
definitely laughing for.
It's
different
definitely
reasons.
supposed to be stupid.
It's supposed to be a dumb
All right. Well,
song.
that's good.
Like
that's
that
good.
was the point.
But it doesn't make any.
mean,
It's like. It's like but there's suddenly being technology in the city. It's like, oh yeah, we've got this, we've got synthesizers now. Let's do this 80s love song. And it's like, God, it doesn't fit.
That scene's hilarious. I love
Oh
that
my
scene.
God. All right. The last thing I'll talk about, and I don't even know how much I want to get into it, but speaking of Disney not really having any balls here with this second movie, it is so clear to me that they want Elsa to be gay, and they're just not letting her have that opportunity.
I don't even know what you're talking about anymore.
No, he's right, Graham.
I am right.
He's 100%
get
right.
Into it.
Ever since Frozen came out, everyone has been calling for Elsa to have a girlfriend. Pretty much.
To have a girl, she
is definitely a queer icon.
Is
a
this
gay character?
How?
Yes.
How? None of this is brought up whatsoever in this movie
In the first one. Absolutely suggested.
It is there.
The fact that she when you look at what she's wearing, when you look at her when you look at her attitude over the first two movies, and she's all of a sudden in this one, she's hearing a siren's call, and she needs to go and investigate this woman who's singing to her.
The only people she interacts with are women for the most part.
All of that is really suggestive that that's actually who she is. And then they never pull the trigger on it.
Right now, I'm listening to two people that are into fan fiction. And
no,
I totally
disagree. Well, you're right about that.
I mean, yes, we are, but that's not what we're saying.
Right about
it
that,
is not from fan fiction.
But we're not wrong about these undertones.
And I've read a lot of articles complaining about that and also congratulating Disney because she is, at the end of the day, one of the only female Disney characters that has not ended up either with a man or expressed interest in being with a man. So that is definitely something that LGBTQ advocates are like happy about. And but at the same time, you're right. If you like, we know what you're trying to do, Disney. You're trying to like appease everyone, and it's without actually stating it and crossing that line, which I think is a shame. I mean, Elsa. I don't know who the character is in that village, but I mean, she's asked to stay by a pretty young woman who's her age. I don't remember which character that was, but they have a couple of conversations in the movie. Do you know who it was, Jackie? Honeymarin is her name.
Honeymarin.
Yeah, and
Honey
she's
Marin
the
is
only
one
like
who...
other character she talks to, really.
Right, yeah,
Yes.
but exactly, which goes into your point. And Honey Marin is the one who says, you should stay here with us and build a life here with us. And maybe I don't know, maybe there wasn't a place for it in this movie, but I think when you look at both films as a whole, I think it's really clear that there's something that's different about Elsa. When you look at her journey, it is, from finding who she is to accepting who she is, and
I'm just
that
shaking
whole
my
journey.
head.
It is an allegory for.
I can't believe you haven't heard this,
I
Graham.
am
Let It
just
Go was like
shaking
this
my head.
big like coming out song. Everyone,
Right? Yeah,
everyone
exactly.
thought so.
It is very much so.
But I understand that, but that is about her being like, I get what you're saying in terms of like her basically being locked in a closet and and trying to come out. Like, I totally understand that aspect to it, but I'm like, I don't understand how it like furthers. I don't understand how this movie furthers that.
I mean,
well,
it's just...
right from the get-go, she's in a purple dress. She's here. She's, there's a woman who's singing to her. I mean, that was the thing where,
but that's insignificant. It could be anything. It's not like she's attracted to this character.
It ended up being her mother, which was something I was really disappointed about.
It just doesn't mean that she's attracted to this voice. I don't understand. Well, I just don't understand how this movie furthers.
You don't use the word siren if you're not kind of into it.
Right? Yeah.
What?
It's a very telling. It's a
reference to the siren song from Greek mythology.
Yeah, but what were they?
I'm willing to get off this train, but I know Jackie and I are not alone here.
Yeah,
right, whatever. That's fine.
I just love how you're just like,
this
whatever.
This is why I stay off the internet. All right, okay, let's go.
Next thing.
First of all, the internet.
Could I just hang on? Could I just say something real quick? Because that was my last quirk, and I think that's a big thing. First of all, I don't care either way. I'm not a fan of Frozen. I like this film a little bit more than the first one. I really thought the first one was overrated. So it's not like I'm spending time online in chat rooms talking about Frozen or reading articles. I'm just saying that's my impression of watching both films. Is
okay.
This is how this character should be going, and Disney is just too afraid to pull the trigger. All right, That's it.
All right, that's perfectly fine. Anything else? Are we gonna get into likes?
Wait, what are your quirks?
I don't even want to talk anymore. I'm
wow.
just like shaking my head. I'm just shaking my head.
Why are you so bitter about this?
I just like don't understand. I don't understand how any of this matters. I'm just like, what is happening? And I feel like this has happened to me in several different movies. Like the other movie that Disney was involved with, I guess, but is the end game thing, where you had like all the women there, and it was like the women scene in the movie, and I looked at it as like just like a cool scene. I didn't like think of anything else as Disney trying to do an ulterior motive. Like, I just didn't see it, and I'm having a hard time seeing these sort of things in movies when it's presented to me. Like, I don't know. And so I'm to the point where I'm like, do I just not understand how movies are made anymore? Is that what's happening? Like, I don't understand.
Sure, in the middle of a big battle, why wouldn't all the women just be grouped together for one shot, right? I mean, why wouldn't that happen?
I don't understand.
I don't know. That's shoving it down an audience's throat. But it's
I didn't even look at it that way. I didn't even remotely look at it that way. It's the middle of
a freaking war, and they're all standing there together.
So who cares? Everyone else is busy.
Because what? Because they all left the bathroom.
But the women aren't busy.
No, everyone else was fighting, and they were fighting too. Even when the scene happens, they're all also fighting. They just defeated somebody and then went along with her. So I don't know. Whatever. But like, I don't have any quirks. Get into likes. We've talked enough about this.
All right, who wants to? Jackie,
Just,
do you have some good likes?
I have nothing to say. So get into likes.
Sure, because some of my likes directly counter some of your dislikes or quirks.
Okay.
So I love the music. So you're right. Obviously, Let It Go was a powerhouse of a song from Frozen 1. And it was amazing. And I think it would have been near impossible to top that song. That said, I think that I really enjoyed the music in this movie. And maybe that's because I do tend to like, I do listen to like a lot of Broadway and go to like a lot of shows. So for me, the music felt more like it belonged on like stage. Like it felt more like an actual musical. And I really enjoyed, like, I love Show Yourself. I think that that song is just amazing. And I think that Into the Unknown has like a really good drive behind it, which I really enjoyed. And like, of course, paired with like the visuals, it's just stunning. And then even Anna's song at the end where she's like, I just have to like do the next right step, is like a call to like all like the previous conversations she's had where everyone's just like, well, you have to do the next right thing. And she's like, okay. And I thought that was a really good way to show that she was like really struggling, because she's such an upbeat character. So to see her have to literally pull herself out of the depths and like find the light in the situation through song was nice. So I loved the music.
I definitely agree with that scene with Anna trying to pull herself up is like a really heartbreaking scene for a character that's usually the most upbeat person in the in the movie, in both movies. The only other one that's more upbeat is Olaf, and he's dead. So so it's seeing that like that really affecting, and it's a really like hard to listen to song. She's like clearly at the lowest point possible and having to like pull herself up. I really enjoyed that. And I have to agree that this one to me feels more like a instead of a movie that's a musical, it feels like most of this should be on stage. And it makes a lot more sense when you look after I've seen so many musicals since I've been with Jackie. So like it feels a lot like a musical, including the really 80s ballad thing that's really common in musicals, to have kind of a funny song in the middle of a really serious things that are happening. So you have like this really kind of funny song to kind of cut the tension, and that works really well. And I mean, the guy they use, Jonathan Groff, he's like known for doing those roles. Like when he was in Hamilton, he's the comic relief as the King George. Like that's the point of having these little vignettes that are just funny and hilarious, and you just move on to the next thing. And so it feels exactly like that for sure. It feels like a musical on stage as opposed to a movie.
Mm-hmm. And I like that because obviously I like shows because I keep dragging Graham to them.
Yes.
And I will keep dragging Graham to them. And then, yeah, I loved the power ballad. I thought it was so funny. And I just, even seeing it a second time and knowing it was coming, I still was just like dying of laughter.
Yeah, it's a hilarious scene.
Same with Olaf's song. I'm like, these are hilarious. So I don't think it needed to be better than Let It Go. I think that these songs stand on their own right, and instead of being the next song that we're going to hear a million times on the radio and in 20 million different languages, we're going to get to see them in the movie and enjoy them as opposed to getting tired of them in a month. So I appreciate that as well, because I highly doubt that we're going to hear these songs in like department stores, and I like that.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good thing, I think. And you even get that in this movie where you have the scene where she's singing Let It Go when she's looking at the past, and the water has memories thing, and it has her singing Let It Go, and she just kind of cringes, and that's totally appropriate response for pretty much everybody, including her, so it made sense.
Yeah. And then, of course, I feel like it's a Disney movie, so this goes without saying, but I loved the animation. Like, I thought it was beautiful. Like, all of the environment and background scenes were just, like, gorgeous. During the songs that Elsa sings, her, like, magical... Have you been to Disneyland, Ian? You have been, right?
Yes. Not for a while. I think I was 18 the last time I went.
Oh, then maybe World of Color wasn't a thing the last time you went. But definitely, I want to go back to Disneyland and see these songs incorporated into World of Color, because that'll be great. And then scenes like where Elsa's riding on the water horse after she tames him were just beautiful. And of course, the animation, it's Disney, so their animation's always fantastic. Yes. But I thought that it was especially well done here, especially since, because you say that water is really hard to animate, right?
Yeah. It's gotten better since we've been out of school, for sure. But it's very difficult to deal with any sort of environmental effects like that.
Well, the water was well done.
Yeah. And I really thought the visuals were really good. One of my favorite scenes is when she does Into the Unknown, and you have all the elements kind of being incorporated into the light show that you're seeing while the song is going on. Is really pretty. It's like really gorgeous, and it's just like such a good, it's just visually stunning scene, and I think that that's really great. So I agree with that too.
Mm-hmm. And then kind of going back to the power ballad and Kristoff, I thought that Kristoff, even though I thought his storyline was like corny, because essentially his entire purpose this movie is to like propose.
Yes.
Which, after being proposed to, I appreciated even more, because I was like, maybe this is a thing that guys, like, legit have to worry about. Proposing might be really hard. But I
mean, it is. I love how you're, like, unaware. Why is this so hard? And like...
Why is this so hard?
I love that Kristoff had this hard time, and I thought that everything that happened with Kristoff proposing and his, like, communication with Anna is great, because she, like, takes it the wrong way pretty often, and he's, like, stumbling over his words, and it's like, this is exactly what guys have to deal with all the freaking time. Like, all the time. Yeah. When they're trying to talk to their significant other.
Thing and blowing it all together.
And blowing it all. It's just, like, the worst thing ever. And, like, you're just kind of, like, and sometimes you'll even get, like, attacked. So, like, you'll say something and it's taken the wrong way, and then you'll get attacked, and you're like, well, no. And then, like, you fumble over your words because she's thinking faster than you are. And you're just like, I'm trying to get my words together, and I don't know what I'm doing. So, like, I loved all those things. They made so much sense to me.
It was really, I think that Kristoff is probably one of the best Disney male role models we've seen. He's not self-assured. He does stumble over his words. He's not this hopelessly, like, romantic guy, but he's in love with this woman and wants to be with her for the rest of his life. And some of his lines are, he's easily the guy with like he's the only character in the movie that sings about love and how important, like, her love is to him, to help get him, like, to help guide him. And then he has, like, he's not over domineering like a lot of the other male Disney characters. Like, he saves Anna from the rock giant while they're running toward the dam, and instead of just being like, I'm gonna save the day, let me take over, he says, I'm here, what do you need? And
what do you need? Yes.
It's like he's there to support her and, like, lift her up. And then even at the end, when she's, like, apologizing for, like, leaving him and, like, expressing her own, like, emotional turmoil, he's like, no, it's okay. My love's not fragile. Like, we're fine. It's just, like, really refreshing to see a male character who's so, like, openly expressive about how he feels and, like, is okay with letting his significant other, like, do her own thing and supporting her through that. So I thought that seeing his, like, evolution, was, like, really good, and I think it's, like, a really good role model for all the little boys who were dragged to the movie by their sisters. And then speaking of character transformation, I thought that Elsa, her growth was pretty impressive as well, because she starts out as this, she's like just scared of everything, and ends up like finding out who she is, and ends up saving Arendelle, which it sounds like Ian kind of hated.
Well,
and I love that her hair like changed along with her transformation, so she has like a Zuko moment from like Avatar: The Last Airbender, where her hair, like, she's like finally free and her hair's down and like flowing, and it's amazing. So I liked Elsa's transformation. And then the last of my likes was, I love Olaf. He's so funny. Like, his retelling of Frozen 1 was like hilarious, I thought, and his song's so funny, and he, to Ian's point, has like one of the most impactful lines in the movie, where he's like, water has memory, and you think it's just this throwaway line, but
it's incredibly important for the entire story.
Yeah, it's like the entire, and while I do think that it was used to the point of convenience, I do think that it was like a really nice way to help tell the story of the past. And also, of course, it's nice seeing that Olaf got to survive, which I think Ian also probably hated.
Well, no, so it's not that I hated that he survived, but I just felt it was like, okay, let's make the audience cry, even though very clearly we have someone who can bring him right back.
Yeah.
So
I love crying, though. Like, it was so good.
Really? They're gonna
it was a nice therapeutic cry
at the end of the movie.
I mean, when that scene happens, I was 100% sure he was going to get brought back.
Right. I mean, there's no...
I mean,
there's no
it's
danger.
not like he completely... Well, he doesn't completely waste away. He just forms a pile elsewhere. Just looks like, well, this is going to come back, right? Like, this is going to come back. So, I mean, I get that. You know, it makes sense.
But those were my
All
likes.
Right. Jones, you got likes?
Yeah, I mean, you guys have touched on it. I think overall it's a good movie, even though I just can't believe they didn't come up with something better when they had all this time, and it's Disney in terms of an actual plot. But
in Disney's defense, they are doing 50 other movies.
Well,
right?
No, that's not a
no excuses.
no excuses. They did have a couple of really big things to wrap up, but you've got a whole different writing staff working on this. Come on.
I mean, I get it.
All right,
it's just they did so many movies.
It's not like the really good writer was stuck trying to figure out how to wrap up 9 films on Star Wars. They had their own writers for this. All right. So, there are some things in here that are wonderful that you guys have touched on. And the movie overall is something that I would want to watch again. And it's because of things that we usually don't get to see. Like I love that there's an animation of, their dad telling the girls a bedtime story. Like that's something I do every night with Peanut. And I usually talk about stuff from my childhood, and just watching the animation and watching the younger girls and how they react, and how they like how close they are and how they bump into each other and just their reactions to the story. I was just like, this is wonderfully beautiful.
That is easily the best animated scene in this movie. They're done so well. Like there's a lot of other stuff that happens in this movie that's visually like amazing and everything, but in terms of animation, when you look at that scene where how they're reacting with each other and how they're so different yet so similar at the same time, and how they look like little sisters that are close to each other, and having like Anna's reactions be different from Elsa's, you can actually see the age difference. It's so good. Like that takes somebody had to figure that out. Right. Somebody had to sit there and animate that and figure that out, and it's easily one of the best scenes in terms of animation. It's so good for character animation.
I'd watch it again just to see that. scene.
Yeah,
But there's
great.
other stuff
really
too
good.
that I thought was like, well, this is good in terms of a message, even if it wasn't driven home the way that I would want. Like, I like that Kristoff, he meets this other guy who also keeps track of the reindeer, and
yes, writer,
is also writer, and is also gives them silly voices, because it's like you can tell what there's. I was like, this is wonderful. This is the stuff that I want to see more of in this movie. And what a great message to have when you have two very different people, who were effectively separated by, like, I don't know, 20 years or so. But they still, they find this common ground, and they're not necessarily adversaries. They end up, and it's clear that they're going to be able to exist and go forward for Frozen 3. So yeah, I mean, that's the kind of stuff I was hoping.
I was hoping that Frozen 3 wouldn't happen, because I thought that this was a direct message to the audience, which is the very end, where Olaf specifically says, or is putting us in mortal danger going to be a normal thing? Are we done, or is that going to happen? And she's just like, oh, we're done. And I'm hoping that's actually telling the audience that there's not going to be a third one, but that's what I was hoping.
That's how I took that. I definitely interpreted that it was breaking the fourth wall, kind of, and that they were saying, nope, we're done. We've wrapped up our story. No more.
Yep. I was hoping that's true, but I guess
there's
we'll find
money
out.
To be made, you guys. They're not done.
Any other likes?
No, that I'm sure I do have more, but I mean, it's just it's tough to. It's tough to, like, I mean, there were things that I really enjoyed, like, the fact that the wind spirit you can't really see, but the fire spirit does have, like, a little, I mean, he is like a little gecko or something like that. Like I liked how they went about they did it all in different ways, from the water horse that she can then freeze and ride on land. I mean, I was like, what a great idea. And these giant rock monster. I mean, there were a lot of things like that in terms of, like, character design and how they handled the elementals that I really enjoyed. So there's probably other likes, and I will watch it when it comes to Disney Plus, because there are only so many episodes of The Mandalorian. So I hope they put it on there soon so I can watch it again.
Well, Jackie and I have already seen it twice, and I'll tell you, man, let's just go ahead and rate it. So I think I have to agree with Ian. I do not think it's as good as a movie as Frozen, as the first movie. And I do think Frozen is a superior movie. But I, in all honesty, enjoyed watching Frozen 2 more than Frozen. And I don't know what that says about it, but I thought this one was a more enjoyable movie, even though I thought the first one was a better movie. So it's one of those things. So I would say see it.
Am I going next?
Yeah.
I'll go next. It's funny because I think watching the sequel is more enjoyable. I don't know what it is about it specifically, but I think it is more enjoyable. And maybe it's just because, in the first one, their parents' death looms so large, and the girls weren't together at the beginning, and they are together now, and so maybe that psychologically plays into it. But I thought this one was more enjoyable, and I am gonna say see it.
All right,
for Frozen
Jackie.
2.
I think if Frozen 1 didn't exist, that I would think that this is a near perfect movie. But Frozen 1 does exist, and I think that I think to an extent you're right that Frozen's a better overall film. I do think the first one has like a lot of pacing issues, which makes it unenjoyable because like it's like really slow going at the beginning, and then it like everything wraps up in like 10 minutes in the first one. So I think
that absolutely happens.
To me, that's why I don't enjoy the first one as much. The music is all in the first like 60% of the movie, so it's just a weird movie. And I think that you can tell that with the first Frozen, there were serious rewrites.
Yes.
And whereas I think my main problems with Frozen 2 are just that Frozen 1 exists. So I think it's no surprise that I'm going to say see it and then see it again and then see it again, because I'm probably going to go see it again for a third time.
Right.
I loved it. It was a fun movie. I think the music, if you're looking for the next Let It Go, then you're probably going to be disappointed. But if you if you just watch the movie with the music like for what it is, it's like still really good. The animation's beautiful, and I think all the characters are really fun to watch.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's sign out. So if anybody wants to contact us, we have our home on the web at halfpastpodcast.com.
Like us on Facebook.
We're on iTunes, Google Play, and Spotify.
We're on Stitcher, Libsyn, and TuneIn. I'm waiting to listen on Stitcher for Dark Fate.
I gotta get Dark Fate done, man.
I want to hear this one too, but I think this is going to be a good one.
Yeah, if anybody wants to contact us, or at least email us, and really tell me how I'm incorrect about apparently how the LGBTQ community is on this character, you can always contact us at halfpastcast@gmail.com.
You know, and I'm not the right person at all, maybe, to be speaking up about it, but yeah, anyway, that would be nice to hear from someone in the community, maybe. Tweet us at halfpastpodcast.
I'd like to thank everybody for listening. I thank everybody for their support. I'd like to thank Jackie for showing up for Frozen. You've been so excited to do this movie, so it's been great to have you on. And the next one we have up, I have no idea what it's going to be. I want it to be Knives Out.
Okay, so Annie and I saw that last night. We could definitely do it next week.
Okay, so I was thinking about Knives Out, and Jackie and I saw Charlie's Angels, which might be a really fun one to listen to. So maybe Jackie and I will do Charlie's Angels.
That would be cool.
We can throw that one up. It's an interesting movie, so.
Okay.
Other than that, this is the Half Past Podcast. I'm Graham Ricks.
Jonesy.
Jackie. Hi.
Jackie needs a sign off. All right, that's your homework.
Yep. See you next flick.